segment 3, Golden Black Live. I want to thank Shannon Terry, CEO of On3, for his insight in Seg 1. Of course, Elliot Bloom from Purdue men's basketball too. Always interesting. We're going to continue making this show interesting for segment 3 with joined by Brian Newbert and Tom Dienhart. And Tom, obviously, beat writer for Purdue football for us, and does a great job with that. And Tom, an interesting, we're more focus on the weather, it seems like, tomorrow. And Jeff Brom talked about it Thursday night in his last word with you guys. But this is going to be funny, maybe a really funky situation. Very high winds, maybe, and maybe some storms tomorrow. But still got to block and tackle, so to speak. But what effect do you see that maybe in playing a smash mouth team like Iowa?
Yeah, first, I'd like to ask you guys the question: when's the last time we entered a Purdue-Iowa game where you thought Purdue had the better running game?
That's a good question.
Maybe that helps the Boilermakers in these conditions if they're as bad as what the forecasters are sort of leading us to believe. You're exactly right, Brian. Jeff Brom talked about the weather Thursday after practice. Acknowledged, yes, they've not done so well in these bad conditions. He cited the Illinois game in 2019. And other games that popped into my head were the Eastern Michigan game in 18. Yeah. I think the Minnesota game last year here, and the Minnesota game in 2018 up there where it was so cold. So again, they practice with the wet footballs, doing all they can to get ready as well as you can for the elements, Somebody's going to slip and fall. Maybe there's a big play, who knows? But yeah, it's a wild card that throws a lot of things up in the air, right? Purdue's about a 4-point favorite. We all know Purdue respects this opponent. We know Purdue's dominated this opponent of late, but who knows? I mean, you think it's going to be a rock fight, as Brian likes to say, a real mutter. And that features maybe running backs. And if you can get some big plays in the pass game, take him while you get him. Purdue has the edge there too, guys. So what I'm trying to say here is there's just a lot of unknowns, and the weather really throws your predictions, I guess, up in the air.
Yeah, Brian, when you look at this one, the line is changing too. I think it's shrunk a little bit, if I remember right, as of as of Friday. You got some trepidation about this game, Brian, from a Purdue perspective, just because this may be an environment for an offensively challenged team in Iowa, but a very good defensive team that may make it tough. And everybody's kind of counting Iowa out, not necessarily this game, but just this season. They've been kind of the laughing stock of offenses around the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, Purdue has been turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Too, and they were turning the ball over when they were winning, and they were getting away with it. And it just feels like there's a convergence of things going on here that are comprising the classic Iowa spiderweb, where you have a team that can't score, but is somehow going to back its way into a couple of scores, and all of a sudden things get kind of dicey here. Purdue's been turning the ball over. They've been giving up big plays. You give up one big play to Iowa, and you don't make them earn what they get, that changes the whole complexion of the game. Purdue's history scoring points in bad weather has been well documented. The running game is in a respectable place right now, but Purdue ran for a hell of a lot of yards against Eastern Michigan a few years ago in a monsoon.
Yes, they did.
Too. The problem was they just didn't score points.
Yeah.
And to score points, you can get yards by running the ball, but to score points, I think you need to be able to throw the ball. And you have to be able to make some plays throwing the ball up the field. That's a little bit easier said than done, when it's wet. I don't know if Aiden O'Connell's had the sort of razor sharp season, Purdue has really preferably needed him to. Charlie Jones is banged up and will be the absolute focal point of Iowa's defensive game plan here, because I'd imagine Iowa was tired of Charlie Jones making them look really bad. Points are going to be hard to come by. No matter what here. And I think Purdue is better suited to win higher scoring games than lower scoring games, whereas Iowa loves to bait you into those low scoring games and beat you 7-3 if they can.
Yeah, Iowa almost got that done in Illinois. That 9-6 loss, wasn't it? Was that the final there? You have that situation, Tom. Aiden O'Connell, and in Brian's point, it's been tougher for him, partly I think also because really lack of separation, maybe the receivers and just some injuries there. No Milton Wright, obviously no David Bell, but having to adjust all that, and then you throw into a maelstrom tomorrow that may make it even tougher for Purdue to throw the ball. I know that Purdue is still the favorite in this game, but that's gonna you do need to score some points, and that is still so much of Purdue's identity that as a football team is how it feels good about itself. It seems.
Yeah, and this is probably what's going to be the best defense they've seen this year, I would think, to date, at least statistically. Great linebackers. That Jack Campbell's one of the best in the Big Ten, maybe the best linebacker in the Big Ten, and always salty. Phil Parker does a good job there. And they will be challenged offensively, like you said. The focal point will be Charlie Jones. Brian talked about that. A lot of, the Iowa DBs had some fun with that this week with some quotes in the media up there, saying things through smiling faces. But I think there were some people who were rankled just because of the timing of it. Happened so late in the process. It out of nowhere too. I'm sure it was incubating for a while, but it seemed to come out of nowhere. So what's done is done, right? I think even the most dyed in the gold and black Iowa fan would have to admit Charlie Jones has made the right decision, right? And he's going to be fired up. So we'll see what he can get done Saturday. And the Purdue defense, going against that Iowa offense, look at the stats, guys. The Iowa offense, even the running game is 13th in the Big Ten. Just unbelievable how much they've struggled to run the ball. We know about the issues passing as well. So, but again, the Purdue defense, the secondary has been a focal point, a talking point for several weeks now. We all see the carnage on Saturdays where we've seen the carnage, the big plays, the busted coverages and whatnot, the missed tackles too. They're doing all they can, obviously, Ron English and Ashton Ubode and Jeff Brom to get things patched up. They're moving personnel around there, having personnel double train at positions. I think Cam Allen is still going to start. I'm not sure if they got better alternatives, but I expect him to start with Sanusi Kane. Of course, sounds like Corey Trice and Jamari Brown will be back. They got on the practice field later this week, but you'll have Trice and Reese Taylor starting the cornerback probably. So we'll see, right? Boy, you always want to get a lead in every game, right? Yeah. And it really seems to be important in this game. We were talking last night among some media members about making Iowa go into the wind if you can to start the game. Maybe you can force a quick 3 and out, a bad punt, you get a short field to get a quick touchdown maybe. Just trying to get that offense behind the 8 ball as soon as you can.
Yeah, it's going to be a factor throughout. I think tomorrow, from that standpoint, it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, Brian, I want to switch to basketball before we bring this segment to a close. Purdue disposed of Truman State in a pretty orderly fashion. Some interesting things going on, and this is going to be a fun season to watch if you're a Purdue basketball fan, just because of all the moving parts. You've addressed your takeaways, but through the lens of watching the game again yesterday and looking at what's ahead. Of course, Purdue opens up on Tuesday night against Milwaukee. Where is this team right now from your perspective?
Yeah, they seem to be ahead of where conventional wisdom would say they'd be. I kind of expected them this preseason, whether it was a Cincinnati scrimmage or the Truman State game, to look bad. Because it would be perfectly understandable if they did, because you've got 2 true freshmen with the ball in their hands. You've got all these guys who've never played but with a big guy before. You've got all these new players. You've got all these players moving into different roles where there's always a process involved in that sort of thing. But they've looked sharp. I mean, they beat Cincinnati handily behind closed doors, and they looked pretty good doing it against Truman State. Anytime you only have 4 turnovers in a game, never mind the context of last season. This team is entirely different from last season's team. But any basketball game with any team where you only have 4 turnovers, you can absolutely live with that. And one of those turnovers was like a defensive rebound. They fumbled out of bounds. That was their first turnover. It came like 9.5 minutes in. I thought Purdue looked sharp. I thought they looked like they knew what they were doing offensively. I didn't think there were as many defensive breakdowns as I kind of figured there'd be. I thought they looked good. I thought you saw a lot of promise in that team. I thought you saw a lot of really positive things from some new guys here. You know, Trey Kaufman-Renn keeps impressing. I thought Brandon Newman and David Jenkins Jr. were really good. I think, you know, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are going to be much better than they looked the other day. I thought this looked like a team that may not have that number 2 scorer per se, but has a bunch of different guys who can do a little bit of stuff for you from an offensive perspective. And I think they're going to be more attentive defensively. And I think that's half the battle. And I just think you've seen a team that looks a little bit ahead of where it would have been reasonable to presume they would be. Now, that being said, November and December are going to have some ups and downs here. And that's the whole point of November and December. It's going to be a matter of developing early in the season so that you're in the best position you can be in when the games matter more.
Yeah, that's going to be a storyline that to watch. Like I said, if you like a development team in good basketball, they're probably going to get that. But I don't think they're going undefeated. So that part everybody will have to get used to a little bit. All right, guys, thanks so much. We will have probably by the time this airs, we'll have predictions on the site. If you're hearing all of us, I guess you're betting the under tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. We're not a gambling show, though. I think everything's a gambling show anymore, but want to thank our sponsors. No gamble there. XXX on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. He will be out at a high school game tonight. His
Cathedral.
What?
He's going to Cathedral. He and I will be sharing a field tonight at Cathedral.
So they got
no, I'm sorry, at Lawrence Central against
because
Cathedral.
It's the tournament for referees also, and Trent's moving up each week, and I think he's worked a state final or 2. He's hoping to get there as well, but with his group. But we appreciate that. So Brian will be on the road tonight, and we'll have a lot of college football coverage tomorrow. Purdue, that noon start. Noon scheduled start. I always say that if there's lightning in the air, it might be a little delayed, but I think maybe that's going to pass by then, and we'll see how that goes. I love weather, as you can tell, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys, thanks so much, and we'll look forward to next week. Big game next week, obviously November 12th. Purdue takes on Illinois. We'll have a lot of basketball because next Friday's show will be leading into Purdue's men's basketball game that night against Austin Peay as well. So always things to talk about. We'll look forward to doing that. Thanks again to the folks, Mary Truax, and of course Gordon Jackson at WL5 for helping make this happen. And we'll see you next week on Gold and Black Live.